Welcome back to The World Over. When Harvey made landfall on the Texas Gulf Coast on August 25th, it was a Category 4 hurricane. The storm's torrential rain, high winds, and epic flooding have so far cost nearly 40 lives and forced at least 30,000 people from their homes. Texas Governor Greg Abbott has asked for $125 billion in federal aid, but many say the eventual cost may be much higher. Joining us now via satellite from North Houston is Texas Congressman, Chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, Kevin Brady. Thank you so much for being with us, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Raymond. Thanks for having me.
Now, your district is north of Houston, and I know your church of St. Simon and Jude, it's being used as a shelter. What are you seeing there? And tell me about this rescue effort.
Well, as you know, this is a storm with many faces, and so while our rivers and creeks have crested in our neighborhoods, they haven't in others. We're still in rescue and crisis mode in southeast Texas, and even now west of Houston, as we see more of these problems with dams and reservoirs, we have another round of perhaps evacuations going on, which is why I'm really proud of our parish, St. Simon's and Jude Catholic Church. They had the shelter up and running immediately. Father Pat, the volunteers, Maxine, the chef, all that. They had the cots up, the food there, preparations for the children. The room with all the clothing and the food was overflowing when I was there. And it really, and they worked with Interfaith to help other shelters get set up as well. So I tell you what, we're just blessed to be. I'm blessed to be in the parish I'm in.
Well, this is, we saw this in Katrina in New Orleans. It is these crisis moments that bring a community together, and you end up seeing the best of them, the grace of the community, and at times it can be, in our lives it certainly was, a blessing that you didn't expect. Now, I know Republicans in Congress are looking to cut almost $1 billion from disaster account relief to help pay for the president's border wall. Do you support that? And given the situation in Texas and Louisiana, should that plan be scrapped?
Well, I don't know that that's the case, that those cuts are for the border wall. What I do know, visiting with President Trump this week in Austin when he visited, then again by phone last night, boy, they are all in committed to our relief, which we're still in that process, search and rescue, on the recovery process as well, and how we rebuild. And I'll tell you, the federal government, our state leaders, which we're blessed with, and our community leaders and volunteers, unbelievable. So I'm very confident we'll be able to provide the help, both in the short term and in the long term. This is going to be a long, long haul.
But you believe a relief bill is in the offing. I mean, will this situation in Texas anyway impede the tax reform plans?
Yeah, so I don't think it will. Here's why. We've done so much of the work to be prepared, and here's what we want to do. Look, we want to make the code simpler and fair. We want to get rid of a lot of special interest provisions so families and our small businesses can keep more of what they earn. We also know our competitors around the world, they've just left us in our dust. That's why so many jobs are moving overseas. So we want good paying jobs coming back to America. So we've been running a separate parallel track for a long time. We are still focused on delivering it this year. But first, we're going to take care of the immediate needs of Texas and Louisiana and the other communities that need that help.
Now, some have said there's going to be a smaller relief bill. Do you favor that, or do you favor a big block bill like we've seen in the past, where it's, $100 million or several $100 million relief package?
Billion, yeah. So I think the best approach would be a two-step approach. And we had this discussion, a number of us from Texas and Louisiana, with the White House yesterday and our House leaders, which is, look, let's take care of the immediate needs in a bill that the president submits here on emergency funding. So let's start with addressing the needs of today. And then as the waters recede and we see what those real needs longer term are, let's address that then when we have more information. What I'm hopeful for is that our relief package is helpful, not wasteful, and then it really addresses what our communities need, not what Washington needs. And that's been part of the problem in the past. These things get loaded up with Lord knows what, And so I really think if we really focus on the local needs, we'll do better.
Okay. With 30 or 40,000 homes damaged in Harvey and the government flood insurance program really on the brink, what do you think should be done there? What are you recommending?
Well, I'm recommending that we continue to reauthorize the flood insurance program. Look, we always should look for reforms, ways to make sure that, the houses that are repeatedly flooding, at some point you got to do something about that.
Right.
You got to keep it affordable for these families that are in the coast areas, not just for Texas, but across the country as well. So look, I think there's some good improvements we can make, but there's no question about it. We need to extend it, make sure we give it a good, strong life.
Okay, final question. I know your son has been involved in some of the rescue operations. Tell me what you've seen, what he's seen.
Well, there have been so many volunteers from Texas, Louisiana, across the country helping us rescue people in life-saving situations. I came back from Austin meeting with the president to learn from my wife that my 18-year-old and his friends had grabbed their boats, headed down into the fray, and throughout a day or more, saved almost 100 people. He didn't tell me this. My wife did. He just went about his business. And so I'm just really proud of he and his friends, along with a whole lot of other volunteers who've done so many good things and continue to.
I love to see that. Well, Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for your time. Know that we are praying for the people in your district and all over Texas and Louisiana, and that our hearts are with you. I'm glad to see it's not only the Cajun Navy, but the Cowboy Navy as well. This is important.
It is. It is. And I'll tell you, I think Cardinal DiNardo, who was stranded at St. Mary's Seminary, perhaps said it best. The next step is, we need to wake Jesus up in the boat. Our calls for aid and mercy and comfort are exactly what we need going forward. And I'm confident that there are so many prayers going out.
Well, thank you, Congressman. And that's a great segue to our next guest, whose chief concern is the spiritual well-being of his people in the region. Joining us now by telephone to talk about what he's been seeing and what he and his staff are doing to ease the pain of his people is the Archbishop of Galveston-Houston, Daniel Cardinal DiNardo. I thank you so much, Your Eminence, for joining us. I want to give people a sense of the scope of this. You are the shepherd to 1.7 million Catholics in 10 counties, more than 8,000 square miles. Give me a sense of what you're seeing and what you've seen in the last few days.
Well, thank you, Raymond, for the interview. What I'm seeing, some of it, I must confess, I've seen on TV because the flooding was so bad that you had to shelter in place in the first 3 days. So I was in the seminary on Memorial Drive in Houston, and I could not get to the office downtown. Wow. Literally, there was no way to get in. Once yesterday I got out, I've looked around. There is the sun is out now, and if you drive in, you'll say it looks okay. And then you start looking at some of the neighborhoods, and you realize the devastation that is here, Raymond, is truly amazing. We have in one county alone 30 to 40,000 homes that have been destroyed. What makes this difficult is that the first wave, the rain wave, is over. The second wave, if you'll pardon the pun, the second wave is coming. That's the rivers that have overflown and the reservoirs and the bayous. So it's this is pretty tough. Now, Houstonians are very resilient. Our Catholic community is doing very well in terms of help, reaching out, but this is quite a blow.
Your Eminence, and we're talking to Cardinal DiNardo, what do you say to your parishioners, the people in your diocese, who say, why would God allow something like this to happen?
Well, one of the things I've mentioned to our seminarians and then to others who've been talking to me, and it's partially humor, but to make a point, it appears at times that Jesus is sleeping in the boat. And we keep crying out, Lord, save us. And now the Lord arises and does calm the waters, but sometimes it seems as though he's got a deaf ear or something. But the Lord always accompanies us. What we're discovering here in Houston is how many neighbors have come to the help of others. And by neighbors, I mean people who just happen to be there. The list of volunteers, both in our parishes and in Houston at large, is truly immense and, in the best sense of the word, edifying. It builds up. So I think the one way we deal with the question of tragedy and suffering and evil is to say, well, God sends people who bring help to us. And that's already a partial response at how God is using what is there with us to help us recognize his loving care. And I think this has been true in Houston.
Cardinal, give me a sense of the impact this has had on the parishes. Do you know how many are underwater? I know I spoke at St. Ignatius there not long ago, and that parish is underwater. I saw a video of it the other day. Give me a sense of how many parishes are out of commission at this moment.
St. Ignatius is devastated, and the community there is really in a little bit of trauma, including the pastor, although after that video or whatever he put out, they were saying the rosary. They are faith-filled people, but that one is in bad shape. Shrine of the True Cross Parish in Dickinson is flooded, and what makes us concerned about that, there's a school there. And we've had St. Francis of Assisi, a parish in North Houston, an African-American parish. There's also a school there. So those are a concern to us. We have a few others. We have about 40 parishes that have some damage, a lot of them really just minor things. But we have some with major damage. So this is really affecting us. There's no doubt about it.
And what would you recommend people do who are looking in from around the country and the world, Your Eminence? What are you asking?
My first thought is, a kind of humanitarian thing. We've got so many people who are suffering. I give to our Catholic charities, but we also have a Hurricane Harvey relief fund at the diocesan archgh.org, Harvey Relief. That one can be used, and we will use that obviously for parishes as well as humanitarian relief.
Well, I expect you all will also be part of not only the recovery, the spiritual life of the people, but getting the schools up and running. The Catholic Church tends to be better at that than even the public schools. So we will be looking and following this story, and know that you're in our prayers.
Thank you very much, Raymond. Thank you. And schools are a priority for us. There's no question.
God bless you. We'll be in touch in the days ahead. Cardinal DiNardo, thanks so much for being here. And you can contribute to the Archdiocese of Galveston-Houston's Hurricane Harvey Relief Fund, as well as other Catholic relief efforts, at the Archdiocese's website. It's archgh.org. archgh.org.